All right, welcome back to Lower Keys Living, everybody. This is not the video that I had planned. We had gotten our live crabs. I was planning to take you down to the Marquesas, place I love to fish. Love fishing on the wrecks. I had all the cameras on board. We had the drones on board. Was going to show you aerial shots of the wrecks from above, get in the water, dive on the wrecks. But the wind was not what was forecast. It was originally forecast to be 5 gusting to 8 knots. When we got down there, it was closer to 15, gusting much stronger. And then we had a strong outgoing tide. So it was just brutal. The stabilizers on the camera just belie how rocky we actually are. You can see we're still rocking a bit, but these are stabilized cameras to eliminate that. It was super rocky, not a ideal situation. Plus, the current was ripping, couldn't get the crabs down on the wrecks. So instead, what I'm going to do today is give you some pointers on how I set up here, give you details of how this is rigged up and what I'm doing here. I always use live crabs out on the wrecks when I'm fishing for a permit, and I'll explain why here in a few moments, but wanted to give you some details. And I do promise as soon as we get a nice week of really calm, low wind weather, I'm going to go back down there with all the cameras and get the footage I wanted to. We ended up moving to a small patch reef off the Marquesas inside to get out of some of the worst waves and current, and had a lot of success. That was a schoolmaster, but got a number of really nice yellowtail and some really nice mutton snapper in this spot. There's some nice big coral heads in here, and if you've ever been to any of the reefs like Luke where they're protected, you get swarmed with yellowtail just hanging out under the boat. It's the same way here. You got to get through the smaller ones to get the bigger ones, but there's so little pressure put on the fish down here in the Marquesas. Not a lot of people come down here. You can get nice yellowtail, nice mutton snapper in shallow water off of these coral heads. You can see in the background, you can see the coral heads coming up here and just packed. I've actually gotten some nice grouper in here in this area before. Didn't get any on this trip. But again, this is not the trip that I had planned to show you. Really wanted to get into details and show you how beautiful it was, or normally is when I'm down here fishing for permit. So I promise I will get back into that next chance I get when the weather's more cooperative and we can get out there and get on the wrecks and give you some great visuals and show you what it's like fighting these permit. Because again, one of my favorite fish, great fighting, great tasting. But if you've got to do a backup plan, we have this as a backup plan. Again, you can see the coral heads here. But stay tuned. I'm going to get into details on how I fish for permit here. All right, so here we are. Trip did not turn out as planned. Like I said, I had been planning for a while to do a nice trip down here, get some great footage of the area down here by the Marquesas for you. I've done some fishing trips down here with friends and on my own before on really nice days and had a lot of success with permit down here. One of the best eating fish, one of the best fighting fish, pound for pound. So just a fun fish to go for. So there are 3 sites, 3 wrecks that I was going to target on this particular day. Weather did not cooperate. It was not what it had been forecast to be. You know, in here where we are in Cudjoe Bay, it's pretty protected from the wind, and the wind had been forecast to be 5 knots with gust only up to 8 knots. So a really nice day. It's like, oh, this is going to be a perfect day. We had planned on to make the run down there out here on the Marquesas, because out in here, you're not protected from wind and current at all. You're exposed to everything. But again, it's a 48-mile run down for me down to these spots, only 25 miles from Key West, so a nice, easy trip down. But again, on the day when we got down there, wind was actually blowing better than 15 knots consistently with gusting well over a 20 knots. So, and I kind of had a worry once we passed Key West, got out in the open water here, and especially crossing this channel, we could really feel the wind and the wave the chop was just picking up. I was like, ooh, this is not going to turn out to be as well as I planned. But I was hoping that wind would continue to die down throughout the morning, but it never did. So again, here are the wrecks. So you can see this wreck out here from a distance out compared to the island. And again, this is a nice big long wreck out here. Lots of structure in about 15 to 20 feet of water. So a really good depth for the larger permit out there. And again, I've gotten a permit off of this year round. It's also a really pretty place to go snorkeling. But if you're going to snorkel it, make sure you're out there at a slack tide, not in mid tides when that current's really ripping, which was the case when we were out there the other day to go fishing. So again, you can see the wind was blowing here straight out of the north, and we had the incoming tide going, and it was just going completely opposite direction. So when you get that wind and current moving against each other, it just makes the waves even bigger and even choppier. So it was not comfortable at all out there. And the current was ripping so strong. The wind was strong enough that I thought if I anchored out here, the wind was going to be strong enough to counteract the current. So we anchored here. I was going to try and drift bait back, but nope, the current was so strong. We swung around this way and everything was going around, away from the wreck. So we came out here, anchored up, and we were trying to drop our crabs down, but the current was just too strong. It was just pulling the crabs and keeping them right at the surface. Even with some small sinkers, it was just too strong of a current out there on this particular day. So should have planned it better to hit these more 2 hours before to 2 hours after peak tide time. So right that slack tide. Little bit better planning, and would have been a little better, a little more tolerable. I would have figured out a way to make it work if the wind and chop weren't so bad. So again, here's an overview of the whole area again. You got your Marquesas down this here, a beautiful area. I did see a number of people that were right up here fishing for permits along these flats as they were leaving, tucking on up in there. What we ended up doing was there's a rock pile out here. Again, you can see it pretty easily on your navigation units, but it anchored up here and got our got some nice yellowtail, got some nice mutton snappers off of that, just chumming and fishing with shrimp. But again, here is where everything is. You can see clearly on Google Earth, you can see that wreck out here. And then the inside wrecks are in here a little bit closer. You can see where those are at. And then there is another really nice wreck in here. If you can find that area, zoom in on that, you'll find that, which is a much smaller one, but it's got some really good structure. It's fairly new. If you find that one, that's a great spot to fish. So how I set up. So I use 30-pound braid on my spinning rods with 20 feet of fluorocarbon leader. Permit are extremely line shy, especially down here in the normally crystal clear waters off the Marquesas. Any line is going to stand out. They can make them shy away. So make sure you're using that fluorocarbon leader. And again, I use 30-pound leader, that 20-foot of fluorocarbon, but it is 30-pound leader. And then these are two of the other wrecks that are closer inshore. But like I said, this one, when we came back in, I thought I'd hit this one because I'm a little more protected from the current in here. But there was a boat on this one when we went by, so we decided to skip that and go out and do the fishing for yellowtail. So I always use live crabs. So when I'm fishing with live crabs, I'm looking for permit using any crabs that are about 2 inches to 3 inches wide across. Super effective, favorite thing for permits. Super effective when fishing for permits. And you always hook from the bottom side up and just wiggle that hook in there. Don't try and just force it through because you're going to end up snapping off the ends of these crabs points. But just put it in just inside these. If you snap those off, the crab's not going to live as long. It's not going to be nearly as active. You're damaging it. So really take your time putting those hooks through. I usually only bring 5, maybe 6 crabs out with me. They're so effective with the permit. If the permit are there, you're going to get your permit with those. And I do bring a backup. I use these from Gulp. Really effective. And these are 2-inch crabs. They are soaked in scent. But I use those, I bring those down as a backup when I'm going off the wrecks, but I do cast those more than I do live crabs when I'm fishing the flats and just the deeper ledges just off the flats up here closer, because you can cast those over and over again without having to worry about damaging a live crab when you're casting. And they're effective. You know, the fish are going to check them out, and they've got such a good strong scent to them. And yeah, they'll last a while. So that's what I use when I'm casting frequently, but go with the live crabs when you're fishing wrecks. And again, healthy crabs, you can cast them a number of times before they start getting beat up a little bit. But make sure you got healthy crabs. If your crabs are looking lethargic at the bait shop, put them back. Don't even bother taking them because they're going to have such a rough time and your live well bouncing around on the trip down. Or where you're taking them, look for good, healthy crabs like you saw in the start of the video in my live well. Anyway, hope this helps. Promise I'm going to get some great video footage down there as soon as we get some good weather days to get back down there. And excited to show you these actually in action. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon on Lower Keys Living.